Hi, folks. It's Mr. Corrente here, and we are talking about healthy relationships today. And there's a few qualities that I want to talk about. But first, there's a couple things I want to mention. Number one, healthy relationships are important. There was a study done at Stanford University that looked at all the factors around our health. And if they could recommend one thing that would improve our physical health, what would it be? Would it be exercise more or quit smoking or eat better? And what they found was that the healthiest people, physically healthiest people, were actually the people with the healthiest relationships. That's the one thing they would recommend for people's overall physical health. Another study was done at Harvard University over 70 years, one of the longest studies ever done, looking at human happiness. What is it that makes people happy? And what they found was that healthy relationships were that one most important factor in overall human happiness. And if you have healthy relationships, you are happy and you are healthy. That's what these two studies, very large studies, would say to us. So if you want to be happy and healthy, have healthy relationships, have good relationships around you. There's probably not a more important thing you could have in your life than healthy relationships. The thing is that we don't always have the healthiest relationships. And the reason is it takes a little bit of work. It's not always the easiest thing to do. And the reality is that healthy relationships take practice. Take practice. Anything that's important to you, you tend to practice, right? If you want to be a great basketball player, you're going to work on your shot. If you want to be a great musician, you're going to work on your instrument. Same thing with healthy relationships. It is so important. And there are a number of skills that we need to be able to do them. They require practice in order for us to do healthy relationships well. And things like listening and conflict resolution and good speaking skills and the ability to apologize well, all of these things that we do or don't do on a regular basis are what is going to contribute to our relationships. So it takes practice. Being able to have these qualities we're going to talk about and implement them into your relationships is a very important thing. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that they're transferable. Healthy relationships are transferable. We're not just talking about romantic relationships, although that is maybe a bit of a focus of what we'll talk about in a second. But healthy relationships within your family, healthy relationships within your friend group, healthy relationships with authority, like with teachers or coaches, and then obviously romantic relationships as well. The way that you practice your relationships within your family transfers over to your friendships, transfers over to authority, transfers over to romantic relationships. And all of those relationships, the skills needed for healthy relationships in all those areas look very similar. So the way that you are constantly doing relationships at home will eventually be the kind of relationships you have with a romantic partner. Anybody can put up a front for a short period of time, but eventually over a long term, you are going to have the skills that you've practiced over the years with your family, with your friends, with others into those romantic relationships. So recognize that. And so you are practicing your romantic relationships right now, even if you don't have a significant other in your life. You are practicing those relationships by how you treat your parents, how you treat your siblings, how you treat your friends. So recognize that and try to develop more and more of the healthy skills and qualities that go into having a healthy relationship now so that your relationships can be healthy in the future. Now, what are some of those qualities we're talking about? Well, let's go through our list right here. First quality I would say is mutual respect. You respect another person because they are a human being and they have thoughts and feelings and hopes and dreams just like you. And so hopefully with everybody you meet, there's a respect level just because of who they are as a fellow human being. Of course, as you get to know somebody more and more, maybe in those relationships that you can choose, like a friendship or a romantic relationship, your respect level can grow, and that they can see you for who you are, and then their respect level for you can grow as well. So that's important to recognize too, that there's a growth there. Sometimes we have to have relationships with people, and we find it hard to respect them based on the things that they've done. Maybe it's a teacher that rubs you the wrong way, but you still have to go to their class. There is still a level of respect, like I said, for any human being who is struggling through life, just like all of us are, that we should have on a basic level. Now, if you are going, like, say you have a friendship and that you have that mutual respect, but then your friend starts to do things that you can't really respect anymore, you have to kind of work through that and say, well, do I want to? Is it really healthy for me to continue on with this friendship when this person is using substances and I don't want to, for example, and I can't respect that. So you have to recognize that the healthier the relationship, the better the mutual respect. And look for, when you have the chance to choose relationships, like with friendships, like with a romantic partner, you want to find somebody or people that you respect. Have friends around you that you have a high respect for. Make sure that you find a romantic partner that you have respect for. It's hugely important, and continue to respect them for who you are. Nobody's perfect, but we need to have that respect there as a basic in all our relationships. Mutual trust. You need to have trust in a relationship. The healthier relationship, the more trust is there. And we build trust by being trustworthy. When we say we're going to be somewhere at a certain day and time, we show up. When we say we're going to do something for somebody, we actually follow through and do it. We can count on people. That's trust. When your parents say, hey, you need to be, at home or in bed by 11 o'clock, you are there, and that builds trust in the relationship. If you're not, that seeds distrust, and there's a lot of conflict that can come out of it. So the more mutual trust, the better. When you talk about romantic relationships, it's making sure that you trust that other person is who they say they are, and the more that you reveal about yourself, and the more you do trustworthy things within a romantic relationship, the more trust that's built. I started dating my wife when we were both in university, and we went to separate universities in separate cities. And in order to maintain our relationship over that long distance, we had to have trust in each other of who that person was, and be able to trust their character during that separation. And it was a really great exercise for us to build that mutual trust. Another really important aspect of relationships, maybe I would say the most important aspect of relationships, is effective communication. Effective communication. And in some ways, that's speaking words that are encouraging, speaking words that are going to build people up. An effective communicator has a tone like, I'm here for you. I'm going to encourage you when they speak. An effective communicator sometimes needs to apologize for things. And so you say a 2-step formula for a good apology is, I'm sorry for what happened, and next time I will. I'm sorry for, next time I will, in that situation. And everyone is reassured when they know that I'm sorry. I'm saying sorry for the specific thing that I did wrong. And I know that in the future, there's going to be other steps taken. Does a huge thing to change the temperature of a conflict when you apologize well. There's 2 other things I have written down here that we're going to go into just a touch more depth, but active listening. So a lot of people don't think of listening as a skill, but it is. And it's one of the most important skills you can have in a relationship, is just to be an active listener, somebody who is actually engaged and really shows that they're interested in what the other person has to say. And this is a skill that we can all work on a regular basis. The first part of having active listening is eye contact. So when you're looking at the person, it shows that you are paying attention. Now, some people argue with me and say, sir, I can listen to you without looking at you. And that may be true. But the point is that active listening is not for you, it's for the other person. So if I'm looking at a class of people, of students, say, and you are looking back at me, I feel like you are listening, actively listening. And when you're in a conversation with somebody, one-on-one, with a parent, with a romantic partner, and you're looking at them, they are more assured that you are actually listening to what they have to say than if you were not giving them eye contact. The other part of active listening is avoiding distractions. How many times have you been trying to communicate something with somebody and they are just kind of looking at their phone? Maybe they're typing. Maybe you tried to get a parent to converse with you and they were busy doing something else. They were distracted. It doesn't feel really good. You don't feel like the most important person in the room. So avoid that. Avoid distractions. Put your phone down. Actually turn it upside down or turn it right off and don't get it out of sight, when you're having that conversation with somebody. Don't be looking around or thinking about other things. Try to really focus on what that person is saying. Number 3 is ask questions. So have you ever been in a conversation with somebody, you're talking and they're like, yeah, but in their mind, they're not actually taking in what you're saying. Giving verbal feedback is good, but it's not always the best. The best type of verbal feedback is asking questions. Oh, that was really interesting. Why did you do that? Or, oh, I've never heard that happen before. That's kind of weird. Like, why did you do that? Asking those questions during the conversation at an appropriate time, right? Not kind of butting right in, but the asking good questions shows that somebody is really truly listening, because you're processing what's being said, and then you're giving feedback that is very processed, because you've been able to turn that into a question. Again, I use the classroom as a comparison. If I have a student in my class puts up their hand and asks a question related to what I'm talking about, I really know they're listening because they've been able to do that processing. But you're sitting down at a table with somebody, looking one-on-one at them, same deal. Ask a good clarifying question about what they're talking about. Try not to go for a yes or no answer with your questions, but regardless, just ask questions that show that you have an interest in what they're saying. And the last thing, number 4, is summarize. Now, this isn't something we do formally for all of our conversations, but if you had to, could you summarize the person's conversation that they had with you? If you can, then you've listened really well. If you can't, you probably haven't. It always feels good the next day when you see somebody and you say to them, hey, I remember that conversation we had. You said this and this and this, and that makes the other person go, "Whoa, yeah, you really were listening." Like if you can summarize what that person said later on, that really shows active listening. So just make that a check in your mind. If I had to repeat this back to this person, could I do that? And again, classroom comparison, when I give a quiz or a test or something like that, it's a summary of what I've been talking about, and it shows like if you've been listening or not. So that's active listening. For the rest of this video, try to practice active listening. When you have a Zoom call, or you are in a conversation with somebody one-on-one, or you're in a class, try to practice that active listening skill over and over. It'll be great for all your relationships. The other quick skill I wanted to talk about with effective communication is how to communicate in a conflict. Conflicts are one of the inevitable things that are going to come in a relationship. You shouldn't think the best relationships are conflict-free. That is not what a healthy relationship is. Healthy relationships have the ability to be able to manage conflicts really well and to be able to resolve conflicts well, because conflicts are going to be inevitable. So There's a real quick 3-step formula I just want you to think about. There's more I could discuss here, but really quickly, when you're in a conflict and you disagree with somebody, whether it's a family member or a romantic partner, 3 things I really want you to say. And you're going to finish the sentence. But the first thing is, I see. I see this situation happening. State what is seen from your perspective. Sometimes we enter conflicts and we're only looking at our own perspective. Very simply, if you just give people your perspective in a very calm, controlled manner, sometimes that really helps other people to see kind of what you're seeing. They may go, "Oh, I didn't see it that way," but that's interesting that this is the view that you have. The other thing is it's an I statement. I see. One of the biggest thing that inflates a conflict is when you say you always, you never, you're the, it's a you. And when people feel attacked, they get defensive and then they're going to start to fight back. And that's when the conflict really erupts. But if you flip it and just say, I'm seeing this, that is an I statement. And that really transforms the conflict. You're not accusing, you're not blaming, you're saying, this is what's going on with me. The next thing is another I statement, I feel. So this is the way that the conflict is impacting me. I feel hurt. I feel, down. I feel angry. This is how I feel because this is going on. So, I see that you have, done this thing that looks like it could hurt me. I feel really upset that you said that about me. And when you say I feel, nobody can really argue with that, right? Nobody can say, oh, you don't feel that way. How dare you feel that way? And when people see, how this conflict is impacting you, it can often lead to them feeling a little bit of empathy and saying, oh, I didn't realize that this is affecting you in that way. So I feel, I see the situation. This is how it's impacting me. I feel. And the last thing is I want. This is what I want to see out of the situation. So I really want us to resolve this conflict. I want to see us move on from this. I want there to be some sort of resolution. And you don't have to have all the answers. Of course, you can offer a suggestion if you have it, but just say, I want us to get along, and I want us to be able to kind of move forward with this. I want the argument to stop. What can we do to get there, right? And then you can have a conversation about it. It might look like, if your parents are arguing and you want that to, it's impacting you. You say, Mom and Dad, I see that you are, not getting along all the time, and I hear those words that you say to each other. I feel really upset every time I hear them, and I really get down when I do hear them. I really want you guys to get along, and I want us to be able to be healthy together as a family. Like what can we do to help this situation, right? That's just a simple formula, sitting down with somebody in a calm, controlled way that goes to help a lot of our conflicts be able to deflate. All right, the next quality of a healthy relationship is commitment. Being able to be there for somebody in good and bad times, not just being there when it's convenient and then leaving when it's convenient for you, but actually sticking it out. And if you think about the relationship with your parents, we expect parents to be committed to their kids, right? And to stick with them through good and bad times, through difficulties, and that's really that deep love that parents have for their kids. Flip that to a romantic relationship, though. I think the best romantic relationships have this high level of commitment, that same commitment that's going to say, you know what, even when things get difficult or I don't always feel, loving towards you, or things are happening that are difficult, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to continue to be there and to be with you. I know, and we have these levels of commitment in our society too. I know in my relationship with my wife, we were friends and we had that kind of level of commitment at first, and then we entered into a dating relationship where I asked her to be my girlfriend, and a couple years later, I asked her to be my fiance, and that had another level of commitment, and then I finally asked her to be my wife and to spend the rest of my life with me, and that's that highest level of commitment. And when we think about the healthiest relationships that we know, they have this high level of commitment, where the people are going to stick it out for a long period of time. Now, of course, in your relationships, in your romantic relationships, there may come a time where in some of your early romantic relationships where you need to separate, and you need, this is not a person you can mutually trust or respect. And there's going to be a separation there. Hopefully it's done in a way that's communicated effectively. And that certainly might be a healthy thing. But I'm just trying to communicate that the healthiest relationships have the highest level of commitment as well. Understanding differences. So understand that not everybody thinks alike, which sounds like a kind of a cliche, but we often enter into relationships and thinking they should be thinking the way I'm thinking, and the way I approach the situation is the same way they should approach the situation, which is just not the case. You got to get step in somebody's shoes or get behind their eyes and try to see it from their perspective, which could be quite different from yours. You can still have a great relationship with somebody, even though there's some differences there. When we're talking about, for example, romantic relationships, one of the biggest things my wife and I have discussed on a regular basis is our families. We come from different families. We're we came from the same small town and very similar backgrounds. But our families do life very differently. And it doesn't matter how alike you think the family of that romantic partner is. There's going to be significant differences in the way that you do life, and being able to just talk through those things and recognize it is important, right? And being able to say, hey, this is important to me, this is important to you, and how are we both going to have those things highlighted in our life is important. So just talk through differences and understanding, and recognize that you don't have to see things the same way or go through life the same way to have a great relationship with somebody. Just talk through all those differences that you have. Active love or care. This is the idea of love. Is love a noun, of a feeling that you have, or is love a verb, something that you do, that is active? And I would argue that love is more that verb, or the care is more of a verb. It's the active things that you do for people to show that you love them, that you care for them. It's one thing for me as a parent to say to my kids, I love you, I'm going to care for you. But if I neglect them and don't take care of them and don't play with them, don't hang out with them, it's not really backing up what I'm saying. And the same is true in romantic relationships. If we have a romantic partner, we can express all kinds of words to them, which is great, but it's backing up those words with doing things that show love to that other person. And that especially shows up when people are going through difficult times, and you're just maybe actively listening to them, or that they're struggling, and you do something to you sacrifice part of your time to help them. That's really what active love is sacrificing part of your time, part of your maybe money, or part of your gifts, or part of the things that you have, and giving that to somebody else. And the more that you do that, the more you're showing that active love. Another quality in healthy relationships is physical affection, and that's as simple as that secret handshake you have with your buddy, or punching him in the shoulder. or hugging your mom, or into romantic relationships, hand holding. And when we talk about the highest commitment levels, the more intimacy, the more commitment, the more trust you have in a relationship, all the way to that highest level of marriage, then we expect that physical affection to be sexual. That is a part of that healthy relationship as well. It's to have a low trust, low commitment, low respect relationship, and have something as intimate as sex enter at that point. We wouldn't say is the healthiest thing for a relationship, but for at that highest level of commitment, then that's something that we would see sexual expression as a part of a healthy relationship. But don't think of physical affection as just sex. It's like I said, it's that that the way that we just interact with people. And I know it might look a little bit different in different times with infections and that sort of thing, but hopefully you recognize that it's important. It's important to have that physical expression as much as you can in healthy relationships. An improved quality of life. So all your healthy relationships should improve your quality of life. So you should be, getting more sleep, eating better, being able to do more, be more productive, get better marks within your healthy relationships. And if some of those things are dropping because of the relationships you have, maybe it's not the healthiest thing. So recognize that healthy relationships should constantly be improving you. And healthy relationships show continued growth and improvement. It's not like, oh, I've got a healthy relationship now, I can coast and I can just keep, not really working on things. Not true at all. Healthy relationships continue to need improvement and growth. And I would suggest that everybody seek experience, talk to people who have great relationships, and ask them, what can I do, or how can I improve, or what are some things I can do to improve my relationship. I know that whenever I had a conflict within my relationship with my wife, I had a couple of older friends in my life who I would go to for advice. And how do I handle this conflict really well? And they would give me some great advice, and it's great. And so being able to lean on those people that who have great relationships is really important as you continue to grow and improve. And find resources. Even though I've been married for many years, my wife and I still will read a marriage book together, or we have attended marriage conferences to continue to improve our relationship. Because we recognize that if we're not, life is growth, right? If you're not growing, then you're not really in a healthy place. So continue to look for ways to grow and improve your relationships. So healthy relationships are really important, and hopefully you've recognized some of these qualities that you have and you're practicing now, and maybe there's some qualities that you need to continue to work on. But whatever the case, just remember they're very important. Keep working on those healthy relationships. Keep practicing on a regular basis some of these things that we've talked about, and what you're doing now at home is going to transfer for the rest of your life. So keep working on those healthy relationships.